Hello, I'm Sheila Rai. I'm an associate professor in National Law University, Odisha. I would be discussing with you safeguard measures under GATT WTO. By now, you must have already read and known a little about international trade law in your previous 10 modules. And you know that WTO and GATT, they impose certain disciplines and regulate the regulatory power of the state to regulate trade within their sovereign territory. Now that sovereign power is regulated by World Trade Organization. But while World Trade Organization regulates the sovereign power of the states to regulate trade within that territory, it also gives them some breathing place in terms of certain exceptions to the main disciplines which GATT imposes. Main disciplines, as you know, which GATT imposes are that there should not be quantitative restrictions, the tariff should be within bound limits, there should be MFN treatment, there should be national treatment. But these disciplines at times, to protect the domestic industry and to protect their economy, states at times need certain protective clauses. And safeguard measures is one of those protective clauses which sort of gives a little breathing space to the state to protect their domestic industry and to maintain a balance in their economy. Now, we would be discussing safeguard measures in the sense that what are the conditions for the imposition of safeguard measures, what are the substantive procedural conditions, what are the limitations on which the states have. These safeguard measures have to be imposed under certain limitations which we are calling conditions. How those conditions have been interpreted by the WTO panel and appellate body in various cases. What are the powers which the states have within those conditions to impose safeguard measures. So basically we would be discussing the law on safeguard measures under GATT Article 19 and the Safeguards Agreement. Now, safeguard measures normally is used in wider sense of the term, that is all protective clauses that are there in WTO, they are used within the frame of safeguard measures. But here we are concerned only with product specific safeguard measures, which is provided under Article 19 of GATT 1994 and Safeguards Agreement. Now, so these safeguard measures are one of the three trade remedy measures. Other two trade remedy measures are anti-dumping measures and countervailing measures. There are substantive, and as we said, there are substantive and procedural limitations on the power of the members to use safeguard measures. Substantive conditions are that under what conditions can a member, what are the situations which give state a power to impose safeguard measures. Condition is very simple, that when there is an increase in import to such an extent that it causes or threatens to cause serious injury to the domestic industry producing like or directly competitive products, then the state can for a temporary period interfere in or intervene in the market and restrain imports in in its own sovereign territory, so that the domestic industry gets some breathing space and the whole market is not taken over by the imports, and the domestic industry that way would be wiped out of the domestic market. Now, procedural conditions we would deal in the end. The WTO law on safeguard measures is contained in Article 19 of GATT 1994, Agreement on Safeguards, as well as there are some specific agreements like Agreement on Agriculture and Agreement on Textile and Clothing, which has now been phased out. They also had specific safeguard clauses in them, and of course the decisions given by the panel and the appellate body, they add to whatever the provisions, they add and interpret whatever provisions are already given in GATT 1994 and the safeguard agreements. Now let us start with the controversy that has arisen in case of safeguard measures in the very early cases which came under the WTO. Now, as you would be looking at the screen, this slide is in 4 colors. article which spells out what is provided in Article 19(1)(a) of the GATT 1994. Article 19(1)(a) in red, it says that if as a result of unforeseen developments and of the effect of obligations incurred by contracting party under this agreement, including tariff concessions, then any product is being imported into the territory of that contracting party in such increased quantities and under such conditions as to cause or threaten to cause serious injury to the domestic producers in that territory of like or directly competitive products, then the contracting party can take safeguard measures. Whatever is written in black is basically the power given to the contracting party to take safeguard measures if the above three conditions are fulfilled. Now, Article 2.1 of the Safeguards Agreement, you see here, instead of in 4 colors, it is only in 2 colors. Now, first part of that is in black, it only gives power to the members of the WTO to take safeguard measures. The one in blue tells us under what conditions the safeguard measure can be used, and the third under green only tells us that this measure is to protect the domestic industry. Now, we see that the earlier part in the previous screen, that the first line of Article 19(1)(a), that if as a result of unforeseen developments whatever is given in red, that is missing from Article 2.1 of the Safeguards Agreement, which otherwise completely reproduces Article 19(1)(a), except that red part, the whole of Article 19(1)(a) is reproduced in Article 2.1 of the Safeguards Agreement. I should have told you before that Safeguards Agreement was signed in 1994. It is one of the WTO agreements, and GATT in 1994, you know, it's part of GATT 1947. That is, it was Article 19, you know, it's part of GATT 1947, and it was signed in 1947 itself. So what do we see? Is there a conflict? Both Article 19 and Article 19(1)(a), Article 19 of GATT 1994 as well as the Safeguards Agreement together impose certain disciplines on the power of the countries to take safeguard measures. But there is a divergence in the wording of the two clauses under Article 19(1)(a) on the one hand and Article 2.1 on the other hand. So, what should we conclude? Should we conclude that Article 2.1 Article 2.1 of the Safeguards Agreement, since it was signed 50 years after GATT 1994, it has modified the GATT 1994? The issue came up in two cases, in Korea Dairy Products and Argentina Footwear, where EC challenged the safeguard measures taken by Korea and Argentina on the ground that the respondent countries have not assessed the requirement of Article 19(1)(a), whether the increase in imports in their territory was as a result of unforeseen developments. What the respondents argued was that the safeguard measure, Article 19 was drafted in 1947, and it basically showed the doubts in the mind of the treaty makers at that time, because GATT was the first international treaty that had been signed, first multilateral international treaty that was signed, and the contracting parties were not sure about the future, were neither sure about the future of GATT 1947, nor were they sure about what is the impact that GATT 1947 is going to have on their economy. So, that doubt is reflected in the first line of Article 19(1)(a), that if as a result of unforeseen developments and obligations incurred by contracting parties under this agreement, that only reflects the mindset of the drafters of GATT 1947 at that time. But Safeguards Agreement was signed in 1994, and in the span of 50 years, the WTO members were now, or the drafters of the WTO agreement who also drafted the Safeguards Agreement, they were now sure what they are going into. They were sure how the GATT 1947 is working and how the coming WTO agreement, what impact it is going to have on their economy as well as on international economy. So, there was no room for doubt That is why that first line of Article 19(1)(a) is missing from Article 2.1 of the Safeguards Agreement, and we should thereby say that Article 2.1 of the Safeguards Agreement has modified Article 19(1)(a). This was the arguments of the respondents. They also took a legal argument that under the principles of interpretation of WTO, the later agreement modifies the prior agreement, and they cited Brazil desiccated coconut case in this regard, and they said that in Brazil desiccated coconut case, the same issue was before the appellate body. Article 16 of GATT 1994 was conflicting with the agreement on subsidies and countervailing measures, which was signed in 1994. And in that case, the appellate body had ruled that the later agreement has modified the prior provision of GATT 1994. So, following that logic, according to the respondents, we should conclude that Article 2.1 of the Safeguards Agreement has modified Article 19(1)(a) of the GATT 1994. But panel sort of accepted this argument of the respondents, and it said that it actually showed the mindset, the wording of Article 19(1)(a) only shows the mindset of the drafters of GATT 1947 at that time, and we should, following Brazil desiccated coconut, we should conclude that Article 2.1 of the Safeguards Agreement has modified Article 19(1)(a) of the GATT 1994. But the decision of the appellate body was opposite. Appellate body reversed the findings of the panel, and it said that the whole of WTO agreement is a single undertaking, and they would interpret the whole WTO treaty as a whole. Both Article 19 of GATT 1947 as well as the Safeguards Agreement, they are part of one treaty, that is the Marrakesh Agreement establishing the WTO. So, this one treaty has to be interpreted in a way in which every provision of the whole WTO agreement, unless and until it conflicts, gets full application, and none of the provisions are made redundant. And they said that they will agree that a conflict under international law will exist only if following conditions are fulfilled. One is that the two treaties which are set to conflict, they cover the same subject matter. Second is they are between the same parties, and the third is that both treaties cannot be simultaneously applied. Now what they said, that this third point is missing in this case, that is Article 19(1)(a) as well as Safeguards Agreement, both can be simultaneously applied, and it is the duty that to give a harmonious interpretation of the WTO agreement and to ensure that every part of the treaty gets full application. So, they said that it is a necessary part in the investigation process that the investigating authority, in addition to establishing that there is an increase in import and there is serious injury and there is causal link, it also gives a finding that increase in import has been caused due to unforeseen developments and tariff obligations undertaken by the members of the WTO. Then they also said that the Safeguards Agreement itself refers to Article 19. Article 1 of the Safeguards Agreement, as you see, it says that this agreement establishes rules for application of safeguard measures which shall be understood to mean those measures provided in Article 19 of GATT 1994. Similarly, Article 11.1(a) of Safeguards Agreement also refers to Article 19 of GATT 1994. So, therefore, they said that since Safeguards Agreement itself is stating that it only gives rules for application of safeguard measures in conformity with Article 19 of GATT 1994. Therefore, Article 19 of the GATT 1994 has to be given full application. Now, what do we mean by unforeseen developments? It's fine that we have to give a finding that the importing country has to give a finding that the increase in import has been caused due to unforeseen development. But what is an unforeseen development? In the previous two cases, the appellate body said that unforeseen development is not a additional condition, but it is just a factual circumstance. It is an observation which gives more confusion than it solves. But unforeseen development, they accepted the definition of unforeseen development which was given by the working party in US Farhat case. It was the first case which came under safeguard measures. In this case, this case was between United States and Czechoslovakia, and United States was the respondent country. The complaint was made by Czechoslovakia, and Czechoslovakia only gave the definition of unforeseen development. It stated that unforeseen development should be interpreted to mean developments occurring after the negotiation of the relevant tariff concessions, which it would not be reasonable to expect that the negotiators of country making the concession could and should have foreseen at the time when the concession was negotiated. Now, this definition given by Czechoslovakia was accepted by the appellate body in Korea Dairy Products and Argentina Footwear case. And further, the appellate body went further and said that there is a difference between unforeseen developments and unforeseeable developments. Unforeseen developments can be established on the basis of objective facts, but unforeseeable developments have to be established by subjective opinion. So, it is more a subjective test, while unforeseen development is an objective test. I do not know what is your opinion, but there has been a debate whether the decision of the appellate body was justified, and the different writers like Yong-Shik Lee, Eleanor Sykes, Felix Mueller, Mavroidis and Horn, they have given different opinions. Most of them have supported the decision of the appellate body except Yong-Shik Lee. Now, the problem that comes, what has to be examined is that certain issues we need to consider. One is which tariff concessions which tariff concession is to be referred to. In 1947 in US Farhat case, the issue was very simple. The tariff concessions given undertaken by the contracting parties in 1947. But after that, as you know, there have been subsequent rounds of negotiations, and in each negotiations further tariff reductions are made. So, further trade liberalization is done in each successive rounds of negotiation. So, which tariff negotiation or which tariff reduction and which tariff concession is the appellate body exactly referring to? The original time, the first time when the product was committed to GATT discipline, or the latest tariff concession that was negotiated? This issue is not clear. The other is we forget to remember that the pattern of tariff negotiations have changed from 1947 to 2014. Earlier tariff negotiations were done on product to product basis, and there was a bargaining for tariff concessions for each product. The contracting parties were few and the negotiations were simple. But after Tokyo round, tariff concessions are being made on formula basis. Product by product negotiations are no longer there. So, members only debate and discuss which formula has to be applied to cut the tariff across the board for all products. Now, since tariff is deducted by applying a particular formula across the board for all products, therefore, it becomes difficult to imagine what exactly was in the mind of negotiators at the time when the tariff concessions were given. So, this is way sort of saying that unforeseen development means that what the negotiators had in mind at the time that when they undertook a particular tariff concession becomes meaningless in the modern times, the way the tariff negotiations are actually conducted. Moreover, the hard bargaining that takes place in this tariff negotiations, it is futile to say, it is more or less a hypocritic or futile to say that members actually think about tariff concessions on each product and what a particular concession is going, what impact a particular concession is going to have on imports of one particular product among the thousands of the product, and how that increase in import is going to affect their economy or their domestic industry. This product by product analysis is hardly done by any member unless a product is of a very sensitive nature. Moreover, this requirement of unforeseen developments makes imposition of safeguard measures very difficult, and this sort of dissuades members to liberalize trade, because if members are assured that in times of difficulty they are assured of a protective clause, then they are more emboldened to liberalize trade. But if they think that recourse to trade to safeguard measures becomes very difficult, then they would be very shy of liberalizing trade. Now, the first condition in proper sense of the term for taking safeguard measures is increase in import. The imports should have increased in the territory of the member who wants to take safeguard measures. This is the first substantive conditions that has to be fulfilled if a member wants to take recourse to safeguard measures. Increase in import can be both absolute and relative increase. Earlier under Article 19, relative increase was not specifically mentioned, and there was a lot of confusion whether relative increase in import is also, whether safeguard measures can also be taken in case of relative increase in imports. But now that ambiguity has been cleared by the safeguards agreement, and it allows the members to take safeguard measures both in case of absolute increase of imports and relative increase of imports. However, absolute increase, to explain what is absolute and relative increase in imports, absolute increase in import, I do not think you have a problem in understanding. Absolute increase in imports would mean when the imports have sort of, when the imports show increase in themselves, and relative increase in import means increase relative to domestic production. So, the problem with relative increase in imports, which writers like Yong-Shik Lee and John H. Jackson have pointed out, is that if the domestic production falls down, even though there is not much increase in import, still it would be within the powers of the importing country to take safeguard measures, because the imports would have risen relatively. So, relative increase in imports, not many are in favor of inclusion of provision for relative increase in imports. Anyway, it is provided under Article 2.1 of the Safeguards Agreement. Now, how do we measure whether imports have increased or not? Now, there is under Article 19 of GATT 1994 as well as under the Safeguards Agreement, there is no quantitative benchmarks provided. In both these cases, the assessment has to be qualitative, and so when a member has to actually see whether imports have arisen or not, in that case, for conduct of investigation, a member has to take a period of investigation. Every member importing country that wants to take safeguard measures has to specify a period of investigation. Within that period of investigation, which may be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever a member wants to take, in that period of investigation a member will assess that whether in that period imports have gone up and whether the domestic industry has suffered serious injury as a result of this increase in import. Now, issues have come up in this case also, since no quantitative benchmark is there and it is a qualitative assessment. Therefore, issues have come up. Issues have come up as to whether endpoint to endpoint analysis is enough. Like if the period of investigation is say from 1995 to 2000, whether if from 1995 to 2000 do we only need to assess what was the import in 1995 and what was the import in 2000, and thereby find out that there has been an increase in import, or we also have to see what was the import in the intervening period. Now, in Argentina footwear case, the appellate body said, both the panel and the appellate body said that imports have to be endpoint to endpoint analysis is not enough. If the imports are declining in the intervening period and it shows that there is a trend in decline of imports, then it would be difficult for a country that has taken safeguard measures to justify its imposition of safeguard measures, because if the imports have started declining then in the intervening period, then you cannot say that imports are on a rise. Agreement does not specify what Argentina had argued, that who was the respondent country. I had argued that agreement has not specified any methodology for measurement of increase in import, and there is no specification as to how long the increase should be or how recent or how sudden should the increase be. But the panel and appellate body, as I told you, did not agree with the contentions of Argentina, and it said that the member has to assess the whole period of investigation and see whether there is a continuous trend of increase in import and whether the intervening decline is so significant that it shows that the imports at the end of the investigation period are actually at the declining trend rather than on the rise. If they are on the declining trend, then the imports safeguard measures cannot be imposed. And what appellate body sort of laid down qualitative methodology by interpretation of article 19(1)(a), it said that we believe that 19(1)(a) requires that increase in import must have been recent enough, sudden enough, sharp enough and significant enough, both quantitatively and qualitatively, to cause or threaten to cause serious injury. But then another case came, that is Argentina preserved peaches, where as you see, Argentina was again a respondent country. It had taken 1996 to 2000 as its period of investigation, and in the interim between 97 and 98 the imports had declined because of climatic conditions in Greece, and Greece was the major exporter of preserved peaches in the world. Now after 98 the imports started increasing, but the contention was that the increase in imports after 98 is not exactly an increase in import, but it is a recovery of imports to historical levels, which was for which there was a sudden decline in 97-98. So this is not exactly an increase in import, this is a recovery of imports to historical level. Therefore, it should not be considered as an increase in import, and just because in recent periods 98 to 2000 it shows that there has been an increase in import, does not mean that actually there has been an increase in import. And here the panel held that there was no increase in import because the whole trend from 1996 to 2000 does not show an increase in import. It only shows that the decline in 97 and 98 was being recovered in after 98, and according to panel, just because in recent past the imports have increased does not justify imposition of safeguard measures. So what comes out is that the trend during the whole of period of investigation has to be analyzed. Now the problem that comes is that there is no baseline from which we assess increase in import. Every country takes its own period of investigation. Professor Sykes had pointed out that actually in 1947 there was a natural baseline, because any increase in import that happens after 1947. But after this so many years, it is difficult to say that from what would be the exact baseline from which we should measure that imports have now started increasing. Now the only thing is that it is a qualitative assessment, and as Professor Lees in reply to Professor Sykes says that it is the whole issue is a matter of art, not an exact science. Now in respect to increase in import, another interesting issue that comes up is the issue of parallelism. Now as you know, article 24 of GATT 1994 provides for, it's also an exception. It's an exception which provides that countries which are party to regional or any free trade agreement, they can they can they may not adhere to the GATT disciplines, especially the MFN requirement, and safeguard measures, as we will discuss later, has to be taken on MFN basis. Now, since Article 24 is an exception to all GATT provisions, it is also an exception to Article 19. Now, if a country is a member of any regional trade agreement or free trade agreement, it is under Article 24 of GATT 1994, it is completely within its rights not to take safeguard measures against a country who is another member of that regional or free trade agreement. Now, but in this case, it conflicts with the requirement of this Article 19 and safeguards agreement, that safeguard measures have to be taken on MFN basis. If you are imposing safeguard measures, it has to be against all importing countries. You cannot select couple of countries or few countries against whom to impose safeguard measures. So, if you are not taking safeguard measures against countries who are party with you in a regional or free trade agreement, does it violate Article 19 of GATT 1994? Appellate body in Argentina footwear case said that no, it does not violate Article 1994, but the the country that is taking safeguard measures has to ensure that it does not include imports from those countries in assessment of increase in imports and in assessment of serious injury. For example, in this case, Argentina was a party to Mercosur agreement, and when it took safeguard measures on footwear, it did not take safeguard measures against those countries who were party to Mercosur agreement. This was challenged by EC. Now, appellate body said that Argentina is within its rights not to take safeguard measures against other countries who are party to Mercosur agreement, but the imports that have come from those countries into Argentina, those imports should not be included in assessment of increase in import and in assessment of serious injury. That is, after excluding imports from other Mercosur countries, if Argentina's investigating authorities still finds that there is an increase in imports which is causing serious injury to its domestic industry, then only it can go ahead and take safeguard measures. So, if you want to exclude members of regional trade agreement or free trade agreement from imposition of safeguard measures, you also have to exclude their imports in assessment of increase in imports and serious injury. There is a different agreement, that is agreement on agriculture. Agreement on agriculture, you know, it came only in the Uruguay round negotiations, and it tries to impose some discipline on trade in agriculture, which was more or less outside GATT discipline before WTO. Now, under agreement on agriculture, certain disciplines have been imposed on member countries, and one of the disciplines is market access opportunities. Market access opportunities is that the members were required to convert all their non-tariff barriers into tariff barriers, and different member countries applied different methodology for doing this. Some of them converted the existing non-tariff barriers into existing tariffs, and some of them adopted a bound rate approach to tariffs, that is conversion of non-tariff barriers into tariffs. Now, special safeguard mechanism is applicable to first category of those members who converted the existing non-tariff measures into existing tariffs. Now, Article 5 of the Agreement on Agriculture, which provides for special safeguard mechanism, provides a little respite to these countries in form of a special safeguard measure in case that if the volume of imports of any agricultural product in their territory increases, which increases in terms of what Agreement on Agriculture calls as volume trigger. In that case, that country can take safeguard measures. There is another price trigger, that is, if the imports prices of that product decline beyond a particular level, then also that country can take safeguard measures. So, though the first category of countries can take safeguard measures in two cases. One, that is if the volume of import increases beyond the volume trigger, and second, if price of the agricultural imports goes down beyond the price trigger. So, if this volume trigger and price trigger are satisfied, to a certain limit the importing country can take safeguard measures. Now, volume trigger is based on market access opportunities, and market access opportunities is defined as percentage of corresponding domestic consumption during the preceding 3 years. If market access opportunities are higher, the volume trigger level is lower. If market access opportunity is lower, volume trigger level is higher. For example, if market access opportunity is more than 30%, trigger level is 105%. If market access opportunity is 10%, trigger level is 125%. Safeguard measures have to be taken if volume of import exceeds base trigger level multiplied by volume of imports during the preceding 3 years, or absolute volume change in domestic consumption for the most recent year compared to the preceding year. Special safeguard mechanism can be taken in form of an additional duty, and that additional duty that has to be imposed has to be up to 1/3 of ordinary customs duty in effect in the year in which the action has been taken. Action means action to take special safeguard mechanism. This duty can be maintained only up to that year, up to the end of that year. Now, most of the developing countries had adopted bound rate approach to tariffication, that is providing market access opportunity. Since developing countries had used the bound rate approach to tariffication, therefore special safeguard mechanism in most cases is not available to them, and that is why in Doha round they are trying to get special safeguard mechanism protection for their agricultural sector also. There was a special safeguard measure under agreement on textiles and clothing also, but since agreement on textiles and clothing has phased out, therefore we won't discuss. I would only like to point out that agreement on textile and clothing also, like agreement on agriculture, had quantitative benchmarks. Possibly the quantitative benchmarks in these two sectors is because of the protectionist history of these two, which was there in these two sectors. The other condition for imposition of safeguard measure is that there should be serious injury to the domestic industry. Serious injury means it has to be either present serious injury or threat of serious injury. The other is that serious injury has to be, and the third condition is that the serious injury has to be caused by increase in import. That means there has to be a causal link between increase in import and serious injury. The other condition for imposition of safeguard measures is that there has to be serious injury to the domestic industry producing like or directly competitive products. And the third condition is that there has to be a causal link between serious injury and increase in import. That means that serious injury should be caused by increase in imports. Serious injury can be present serious injury or threat of serious injury. Present serious injury means that the domestic industry at present is facing serious injury. Threat of serious injury means that there is no present injury, but the domestic industry is afraid that if imports are not stopped or not taken care of, in near future it may suffer serious injury. Now, if you have gone through anti-dumping measures, you will know that even though anti-dumping measures is another trade remedy measures, here the threshold is a little higher. That is, in anti-dumping measures the threshold is material injury, and the same is in case of countervailing measures. Both in case of anti-dumping measures and in case of countervailing measures, the injury required for domestic industry is only material injury, which means and material injury has been defined as any injury which is not insignificant. But serious injury is a higher threshold, and Article 4.1 of the Safeguards Agreement defines serious injury as total and complete impairment of domestic industry, and Article 4.2 gives a list of factors which help the investigating authority to assess the health of the domestic industry. That is, the factors are like whether the inventory is rising, that is unsold products are piling up in the godowns of the domestic industry, whether the price and profit level of domestic industry is going down, what is the impact of what is the impact on the employment and on the labor. These are various factors which are given in Article 4.2 to assess the health of the domestic industry, and it has been held that in Argentina footwear case that all the factors mentioned in Article 4.2 have to be necessarily examined. There might be additional factors which might be showing adverse health of domestic industry, so they can also be included, but the factors which are mentioned in Article 4.2 have to be necessarily examined. But what is serious injury? That is again a disputed question. In US fur hat case, Czechoslovakia had contended that maybe increase in imports of fur hats in United States might have caused some injury to the domestic industry of United States, but it was not an injury which can be called serious injury. But the working party in that case held that it is a subjective assessment. There cannot be any objective criteria what is a serious injury. The health, what is serious injury for industry of one country may differ what is serious for another country. From industry to industry it may also differ. So it has to be an objective criteria which has to be, it has to be a subjective criteria which has to be examined by, it has to be a subjective criteria, and it depends on the assessment of the investigating authority taking all factors into account, that whether the injury is serious enough to justify imposition of safeguard measures. So there cannot be any objective criteria laid down to assess that now we can say that injury is serious enough. It is also possible that both serious injury and threat of serious injury coexist. It's not necessary that there should be either serious injury or there should be either serious injury or threat of serious injury. Both can be simultaneously present. Now, the next question is injury to whom? As I had pointed out earlier, it has to be injury to domestic industry producing like and directly competitive products. Now, this again is points out the difference between safeguard measures on the one hand and anti-dumping measures and countervailing measures on the other hand. There the domestic industry has been defined narrowly, that is industry producing like products. Here in domestic industry has been defined broadly, that is industry producing like and directly competitive products. So safeguard measures, although it raises the threshold of injury, that material injury is not enough, it has to be serious injury, but it provides protection to wider range of domestic industry, but it should not be too wide, as shown in US lamb meat case. In US lamb meat case, in assessing the domestic industry, the United States had taken the feeders, the growers and of feeders of lamb also in the packers of lamb meat, and they had defined the domestic industry wide. Normally only the packers of lamb meat should have been included within the term domestic industry, but they included the growers and feeders of lamb also. The contention of the United States said that it is a one continuous line of production from growing lamb to final packaging of lamb meat. It is a one continuous line of production, and it affects the whole of the, and any increase in import will affect the whole of the domestic industry. But the panel held that no, this is a very wide definition given to the domestic industry, and this is not acceptable. The term domestic industry should not be defined in such a wide manner. Now, under agreement on agriculture, there is no requirement of injury if there is a volume trigger and price trigger. Now, price trigger is something which comes close to injury because prices of the agricultural product fall down below the trigger level. So, I have put it under the topic of injury, but it is not injury in the sense what we understand injury under the safeguards agreement. Now, as I had told you earlier that special safeguard mechanism under agreement on agriculture can be taken when there is a volume trigger and price trigger. Volume trigger we have already discussed, and price trigger is as per the agreement on agriculture is that if CIF price of shipment falls below the trigger price equal to the 1986 and 1988 average price. This is how price trigger has been defined under the agreement on agriculture. The amount of duty that is provided in this case is provided in a sliding scale. That is, if the difference in the prices is 10% or less, then no additional duty can be imposed. If the difference in prices is between 10 to 40%, 30% of additional duty can be imposed. If difference is between 40 to 60%, 50% additional duty can be imposed. But the thing to be kept in mind is that a member can take recourse either to the price trigger or to volume trigger. It cannot take recourse to both simultaneously. Now, the third substantive condition for imposition of safeguard measures is that there has to be a causal link between increase in import and serious injury. And causal link in Argentina footwear case, the appellate body had laid down a 3-step test to find out whether there is a causal link between increase in import and serious injury. Now, these 3-step test is, first is whether upward trend in import coincide with downward trend in injury factors. In case there is upward trend in import does not coincide with downward trend in injury factors, then there has to be reasonable explanation provided that why still the country feels that there is a causal link. Second is whether objective examination of conditions of competitions between imported and domestic product show causal link. And third is whether other relevant factors analyzed and have been analyzed and whether non-attribution requirement has been fulfilled. Now, non-attribution requirement is that there might be many factors which might be adversely affecting the health of domestic industry at a particular time. Increase in import might be adversely affecting the health of domestic industry, but there might be many other natural, economic and social factors which might be hurting the health of domestic industry simultaneously. So, non-attribution clause requires that effect of all those other factors have to be segregated, and then it has to be found out that there is a clear link between increase in import and serious injury. And to see, now this again is not a quantitative assessment. The both in anti-dumping and countervailing measures cases on the one hand and safeguard measures cases on the other hand, in all these cases the panel and the appellate body have consistently held that non-attribution requirement has to be fulfilled, but it is not a quantitative requirement. That is, you do not have to quantitatively assess how much injury is caused by increase in import and how much increase is caused by other factors, but whatever, it has to be a qualitative assessment that how far other factors are affecting the health of domestic industry, and if we segregate the effect of those factors, can we still say that injury to the domestic industry is due to increase in imports. Now, this non-attribution clause and safeguard measures has largely come with reference to US case laws, which provides for genuine and substantial relationship between increase in import and serious injury. Now, this US law did not have non-attribution clause. It did not provide that impact of other factors have to be segregated. Now, the appellate body in all cases has held that the US law does not comply with the provisions of the WTO agreement on safeguards. Professor Sykes has criticized the findings of appellate bodies by saying that actually the same factors which cause increase in imports, the same factors cause serious injury. Therefore, it is difficult to find a causal link between increase in import and serious injury. Therefore, like if demand goes down, in that case that would affect the health of domestic industry, but at the same time also cause increase in import. But Professor Yong Shik Lee has replied by saying that we have to look from the perspective of domestic industry. From the perspective of domestic industry, it is the increase in import that is causing injury to the domestic industry. So, domestic industry is not concerned what has caused increase, what has caused increase in imports. So, the causal link requirement or non-attribution clause has to be seen from the perspective of the domestic industry. Now, lastly, we come to certain procedural conditions. The three substantive conditions, that is increase in import, serious injury and causal link, after they are satisfied, the presence of these three substantive conditions has to be established by a procedural process, and that procedural process under the Safeguards Agreement requires that there has to be an investigating authority which can entertain complaint by the domestic industry for protection. At times it can also take suo motu action, but if domestic industry feels that it is being injured or it is suffering injury by increase in import, then it can petition to the investigating authority. The domestic industry has been, for this purpose, has been defined as producers of major proportion of production. Now, for the process of this investigation process, the normal requirements of natural justice has to be sacrificed. A notice has to be given to all interested party and a hearing has to be given to all interested party. After there is a positive finding of increase in import, serious injury and causal link, the importing country can take safeguard measures. These safeguard measures, as I told you earlier, has to be on MFN basis. The safeguard measures can be in the form of safeguards duty or they can be in the form of quantitative restrictions. That way, safeguard measures are an exception to Article 2 and Article 11 of GATT 1994.